Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Equestrian Adventuresses Goes Live. Very excited to be with you again today. I'm Crystal and Ucha are with us. So we have great topic. We're going to talk about solo travel in the Middle East. So I know you two ladies have a ton of experience with that. I am the naive gal from North America, so I'm hoping that you can share lots of great info with us. Just a few housekeeping. Please comment, ask us questions. Crystal and Uta have traveled extensively in the Middle East, so they have lots of knowledge to share with you. There's a little comment box. Put in there where you're watching from today. We always like to see where our other adventuresses are coming to visit us today. So now, welcome everyone. Now, Crystal, I know you've worked extensively in that area. Why don't you kind of give us a little rundown on your thoughts on solo travel in the Middle East?
Yeah, so I started out working in Cairo in Egypt, actually. So it was my first like Muslim country that I've been to, and I've traveled a lot. I've been to like Yemen and Iraq and Qatar and a few places, and I had a lot of friends also working in places like Dubai and Qatar and such. So there's a lot of horses. There's a lot of horses in the Middle East, definitely. So it's a fun culture to get to know. I was a bit like you, though, Heather, in the beginning. I didn't know anything about that kind of culture. And I remember I went to Barnes & Noble, a bookshop in America, trying to, like, when I found out I was going to work in Egypt, and I grabbed a book, like the only book I could find about Egypt. And I just like turned to, there was a page, and it was like, safety tips for solo women travelers. And I opened that page, and it was like all these rules, like don't look a man in the eye and don't do this and blah, and make sure you wear a fake ring and all this. And I was 21 years old at the time. I'm like, no one's going to believe I'm married. Like, I'm 21. But yeah, so I saw all this, and I just remember I like slammed the book shut, put it back on the shelf, and I was like, nope, I'm just going to wing it. So that was my introduction into sort of the Arabic culture.
Uta, what about you?
I definitely don't have as much experience as Crystal has, but I've been traveling quite a bit. I've traveled to Egypt as well. I've traveled to Turkey. I've spent some time in a couple of smaller countries there. I've been to Kuwait and places like that. So I like traveling in Islamic countries, actually, not just the Middle East. I also have like North Africa as high on my bucket list. I would have gone hadn't it been for COVID-19, I guess. I enjoy the culture there a lot because I don't think there is any people in the world who are as kind, who are as welcoming as people in Islamic countries, actually. So I love this bazaar culture, and I live in India. So while India is not an Islamic country in the strict sense, it is definitely, well, some of the things are related, and with some of the issues you're dealing with in countries in the Middle East, you're also dealing with in India. So I guess it's fairly similar in some respects. But I can't say I've had any bad experience so far. I was pretty good here. So what about you, Heather? You've never been to the Middle East yet? So have you any plans? Is there any country on your bucket list?
Well, I was just telling you before we went live, we probably have received 18 inches of snow in the last 30 hours where I am. It was plus 20 degrees Celsius here, not that like a few days ago. And now we've like thrusted right back into January. It's like, I don't know what happened. So anywhere that is not cold and snowy is on my bucket list right now. Now, I have a few questions about traveling to those Muslim countries, as a blonde, fair-skinned woman. I know, like you said, Crystal, there are lots of rules when you're going to those places. Your head is supposed to be covered, your shoulders supposed to be covered, your knees, all those kind of things. So what are some, those would be your basics. Like, are there things that are must, as a female, you must do when you travel to those countries?
There's definitely a lot of things, but I think there's a lot of kind of misconceptions. I think a lot of Westerners, they think, oh, I'm on vacation, so it's okay to wear a skirt or wear a dress, or oh, it's hot, or so I'm going to wear a tank top. That's not okay. So, one of the biggest pet peeves I had is when I used to ride the horses like around the pyramids quite a lot, and I would like see, the tourists and their dresses or their skirts or tank tops, and I was just like no, don't do it, because you have to understand, like, you're there for a short amount of time, and the thing is, like, it's not that I think something bad will happen to you. It's more about, like, you see all of the Egyptian boys and all of the kids and they're like staring at this. They think it's a naked woman, so they're like staring at this naked woman, and so there's definitely repercussions. It might not happen to that tourist lady, but for me, who's working there, I have to then go to that guy or to those kids and try and explain to them, like, like I'm a good one. Like, don't try and touch me. So, there's definitely some like cultural things that you should be respectful. And, it's common sense. It's like, dress modestly. You don't have to look like a nun. You don't have to wear hijab or something. But dress modest. I wore breeches. I wore polo shirts. I had them buttoned up to like the top button, but nothing crazy. Nothing, just normal t-shirts, normal polo shirts, normal breeches, my riding boots, my helmet, like all that stuff I was wearing every day. And it wasn't an issue. We have a comment from Lisa. She says, those rules are only expected in certain areas, head covering only in holy areas in Israel. So I myself have worn hijab. I've worn niqab as well when I was traveling in Yemen, and burqa and everything. My entire time in most Middle Eastern countries, I've never had to cover my hair or something like that. I remember when I lived in India, I tried it a few times because I'm blonde and everyone was grabbing at me. So I tried it a few times to cover my hair, thinking like, oh, that will help. And it didn't make a difference because I'm 5'8" and like white. But yeah, so, I think as far as clothes, like that's kind of one thing. And then as far as like culture and I don't know, etiquette or whatever you want to call it, they're like, I think Uta, you nailed it. Like they're extremely friendly, and like in the Middle East, like they're so friendly. And I think there's this like, I don't know, there's some sort of understanding that we're, Western women. And so they kind of let us act as men in a lot of situations. So, I can go and I could shake their hand, or, you know what I mean? Like there was never a situation where I'm like, oh, I can't make eye contact, never. So, I'm joking, I'm laughing, I'm sitting with the men, I'm drinking the hot tea. I'm doing all of the things as if I'm one of the guys, sort of. And they just don't let me lift heavy things and pay for stuff. That's their way. They're like, no, this is like on me. So yeah, other than a lot of chivalry, there's really nothing that's gonna hinder you.
So American. Oh, sorry, Uta. American television has really, skewed our impression of what really it is like when you travel there.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely. I think. It's never as bad as sometimes they picture it, because you should be prepared and you should maybe know a little bit about the culture. And as Crystal rightly said, dress up modestly, right? You'll get stared at. I mean, you're blonde. We are all the three of us are blonde, basically. So you can't help. You can't hide your fair skin, your light eyes. You'll stick out, But you can stick out in a positive way or in a negative way, right? So if you wear like mini skirts or sleeveless t-shirts, you'll stick out in an extremely negative way, and people will stare at you and they think like, oh my God, she's naked. And, she's like, they get that impression that all Western women are like, wanting it all, because the problem is a lot of the people there, particularly if you go to places where there's less tourists or where people don't really interact with people, or when people are not so well educated that they can interact with tourists, for instance, they get their impression of Western women very often out of blue movies. So they think all Western women are kind of loose and crazy, and they're interested in men all the time, and so that works both sides sometimes. So I think if they get to know you and they get to know that you are like a proper person, and you get to know them as proper people as well, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the beginning, and if you can kind of get rid of the understanding of the misunderstanding in the beginning, there's people are not as bad as they sometimes painted, and you can also kind of say, okay, look, I'm decent, I'm just like maybe not the women there, because the problem is one of the biggest issues in Islamic countries is that women are not usually occupying a place in public space, right? So women are usually more at home. They are more in the private field. They do work in offices, but they don't really work, or are really not linger, or not encouraged to linger in the public space. So we are, as tourists, we are there in the public space. So there is already a big difference. So yeah, dress conservatively, be aware of all the kind of of the kind of misunderstandings which might be there, of the preconceptions which might be there, and try to just act in a sensible way. I always say, how there's areas at home I wouldn't go in at night alone, and same in any country you travel in, whether it's Islamic or not, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in Europe. There's just some no-goes you should do wherever you are, right? Like walk unaccompanied in a dark area at night somewhere, in a poor lit area. So these kind of things shouldn't be done wherever you are, right?
And if you guys are just joining us now live, do comment in the chat, like, some of your experiences. Have you been to any I don't know, Arabic countries or Middle Eastern countries? Are you thinking about it? Like, where is it that you want to go? Just comment in the chat there. And, I love to hear. I love the Arabic culture because there's a lot of, like, I've been to Uzbekistan, for example. Uzbekistan is one of those countries I think should be on everyone's list. And there's all these buildings. They're just so beautiful, like these turquoise colors, and like, the Arabic writing to me is the most beautiful, like, written writing ever. And that's like how they're decorating their temples and things. And, there's the little bazaars that you've seen in like Aladdin or whatnot. And so, it's like a really, really cool country to go and just walk around and stare at these old buildings. And one of the buildings in, I think it was Bukhara, actually. So there's this tall tower, and I think it was Genghis Khan who was actually at that tower. And they had never seen something as high as that tower before. And when he looked from the ground, it was actually so high that his hat fell off. So they like named it, I don't know, hat falling off tower or something like that. I'm sure it sounds cooler in Mongol. But yeah, it was like, so, and that building is still there to this day. So I think there's a whole lot of just super awesome, like, about the culture and the architecture, and like there's so many things to love about Arabic cultures and the Middle East and the people and the food. Oh my God, I love the food. So I definitely think it's something that people should be open-minded to travel to. I also don't want to just sit here and say like, oh, it's 100% safe. Like, just go wander around and nothing bad will ever happen to you, because like that, I wouldn't give that advice to walking around in, I don't know, Chicago in America or something,
Exactly.
So, it's just like you were saying, use common sense and stuff. And the biggest thing that I would say for women, especially if you were traveling solo, and we do have a women's safety course. This is an online course that I put together a while ago because of that reason. I share a lot of personal stories and situations that have happened to me in that course, but also like my mom is a police officer. She was working with sex offenders and murderers of rapists for so many years. And there's like so many subtle things that you don't pick up on that I think as women, we need to be aware of. So some safety tips that I want to share, if you haven't done the course already, is don't be afraid to say no. Okay. And like, really say no. You are not going to offend them. You're not going to like ruin whatever. Like, just say no. If you're uncomfortable, or if they're they're testing you, they're not allowed to touch you. So if they grab your hand to check your watch to see what time it is, that's not okay. And that's how they're kind of testing the waters. Like, is it okay to touch this white woman? Let me grab her wrist and see what happens. So say no. And one of the first words I learned in Arabic was matel mishnish, do not touch me. And I used it I used to quite a bit. And then finally they understood that they weren't allowed to touch me, and I went on with my day. So, don't be afraid to say no, and like use your common sense and put away your phones. Like if you're walking around in the bazaar or in town or whatever, like always be mindful, always look at the surroundings, what's happening. And that's it. Like, it's all it takes. Just be present. And I think that in itself will save you from, and that's not just the Middle East. That's literally every country. That will save you from bad things happening in a lot of situations, or somebody trying to pickpocket you, or I don't know, whatever these common things you hear about. But just put away your phone and just be present and like observe people. People watch. That's one of my favorite sports, I would call it. People watching.
Yeah, that's one of mine too.
Particularly when you're in a different country, sitting somewhere and just look at the people strolling by. It's so interesting. See everyone. Yeah, I think, you really got a point there. I always say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So try to be culturally a little sensitive, just try to understand the culture, read a little bit about the culture. In most Islamic countries, there's a lot more segregation between men and women than in our Western culture. And it's really not really the rule that a man talks to women or a woman to a man. So if men chat you up, it's something you should always be a little careful about, wary about. That doesn't mean every person is a potential rapist or a kidnapper, but you just need to be a little bit like, don't make so much of eye contact, don't flirt, don't really be so polite, because we are really trained to be really polite, make eye contact every time, say yes, please, no, please, thank you. Yes, as you said, Crystal, I think saying no is very important. Voicing your concerns, like if somebody also like touches you in public, which can happen anywhere, shout, scream, alert everyone. A lot of women feel shy about these things. They feel like, oh my God, he touched me on my body and I shouldn't say anything. What shall I do? And this is wrong. Always shout out, say something, shame the people, shame the person who did that, because if he's done that with you, he'll do it again, right? So if you shame him publicly, a lot of these are like boys. They as you said, they're testing the water. They see how they can maybe start things up. And if you shout out, if you shame them publicly, they think about that twice before doing it again. And if not, they'll go on and eventually, end up doing worse. So I think this is really important, being knowing where you're you are a person, you're worth it, and you're having all the rights to say these things and to say no when it concerns you. So I think this is really, really very important to do wherever you travel, not only in Islamic countries, but there it's more important, because when we travel to countries we're not so familiar with, we sometimes tend to be a little bit insecure, a little bit shy. We tend to not really know what to do. But these are things you should always keep in mind wherever you go.
And as second you call the like women or the men your brother or your sister or your like family member, you're made. They will take care of you. They will protect you. You don't have to do anything. Like as soon as you're there with someone, you're set for life. So yeah, you don't have to ever travel alone in that sense.
They definitely love the family, and they really take care of the family, and they really feel very strongly about the family. So if you call somebody brother, he'll probably not leave you out of sight anymore for the rest of your stay there.
Yeah.
This is great advice for not only traveling to the Middle East, but really traveling anywhere. Being, like you said, being present, knowing where you're going. You said that, you learned very quickly how to say, don't touch me in Arabic. It's definitely worth, when you're traveling to a country that doesn't speak your native language, always a good idea to learn a few key phrases. Obviously, no, don't touch me, please, thank you, yes, those kind of things, because, like you said, Uta, being polite is something that's kind of, bred into us, that, we're always supposed to be agreeable and say, use our manners and those kind of things. But sometimes in situations like where someone touches you, there's probably been lots of times where I've been bumped into and I'll apologize, oh, sorry, when in fact they actually touched me. But those are things that when you're traveling to a country where maybe that isn't acceptable, and it isn't just socially acceptable, it's culturally unacceptable. So those are kind of things that to be, as a woman traveling, those are things that we should, not take for granted, that if somebody bumps into you, that you didn't do it, they did it, and that following the cultural rules is always a good idea.
Well, the great thing about, like, let's talk about Muslim culture specifically. The great thing is, like, they know their religion better than we do. Okay. You don't have to fast for Ramadan in order to understand it. But if you're not interested in, kind of learning about their culture, that's okay. They know their culture. And the second, as you said, you kind of say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And you're confident about, like, I know you're not supposed to do that. The other men will actually shout at him for you, because of course he's not supposed to do that. So you don't even have to shout at him. You just have to say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And then the other men will be like, what did he do? Oh, no, he didn't. So, you don't. And, I'm bringing up these things not to try and, like, discourage people, like, oh, don't go, because that will happen for sure. It doesn't. I was there, like, for work. I was working. I was living there. I was, like, eating with the locals. I was driving a car, like, with the locals. I used to have this big black, like, SUV, and I would roll down my window, and the guy who sells mangoes would, like, see my face and then, like, run to me with a fresh glass of mango juice. I would feel, like, very, very cool, because I was, like, a local person, And but yeah, when you're there and you're just visiting, like, you're only there for a short amount of time. It's okay to, like, not wear your shorty shorts for 2 weeks or however long it is you're going to be there. Wear your breeches and your polo shirts and respect their cultures. And then, as I said, you don't have to, like, fast for Ramadan or something, but just be mindful and ask questions. Like, they're so open to talking about it. I've never, ever had somebody, like, when I was asking them questions about their religion or their culture or whatever, like, I was alone with a group of ladies, and they were all wear, their burqas and their niqabs. And of course I'm a lady. So when I'm in the house with them, they take off their covers and they, like, throw it to the side, and they're like, oh, my hair. And they're, like, painting me with henna, and they're gossiping all these things. And, there was no question I couldn't ask them. And they were so open, and they weren't even, like, offended or something. It wasn't like they're trying to convert me or whatever. Like, they were asking me questions like, what does it look like, your house in America? And I showed them a picture of my mom's house, and she has little dogs. And they're like, oh my God, you have dogs as, like, pets in the house? Like, what? They're, like, mind blown by the fact that there was dogs sitting on the couch, so they're totally open to talking. Like, don't be shy, and just ask your questions. And, like, I think that's why we travel, is to learn about other places and to step in their shoes, even for a day or two or whatever. Like, you'll grow as a person because of it. And I know during my time, because I asked those questions and I educated myself, like, I did learn some of the language, or I eat their food. Like, they just so much, like, respect for that. And, when you're not even in those countries, like, I met some Egyptians in Florida, of all places, and I spoke a few words of Egyptian to them, and they were like, oh my God. So, like, it really makes a difference. So that's one of the things that I love. And definitely when you travel around the world, you'll meet a lot of these friendly people.
Crystal, when you mentioned about being, the women being comfortable around you, taking off their, headpiece, all those kind of things. I was actually in London a few years ago. In the hotel that I was staying at, there were lots of Muslim women, and we happened to be on the elevator, and it was so hot. And I remember her taking it off, and she had this, like, beautiful mane of hair underneath, and her makeup was, like, done perfect. Fingernails painted, jewels on her fingers. And, it was surprising, because, I think as a Westerner, there is, television movies have kind of, made them all, seem very repressed, and that, women are, they're covered up, and they, don't have anything pretty. But this woman was absolutely beautiful. Her hair was like, I've never seen black hair shine like that, and it had, like, perfect wave, and her lipstick was, I'm like, how did you keep her lipstick perfect with her mouth being covered? So, but it was eye-opening for me.
definitely. And you don't want to sneeze when you're wearing a niqab. I learned that the hard way. But it's a built-in tissue.
Yeah, you know,
I don't know.
sometimes we really have these misconception about Muslim women. I had it's a couple of years ago. We had some guests from Oman. It were two sisters and a brother riding with us, and they all were pretty much beginner riders. But so they came to the farm to learn a little bit, to take a lesson, and then go for a little ride with me. And the girls were wearing they were wearing the headscarf. Just a headscarf. Oman is fairly like women wouldn't wear niqab or anything covering their faces, but they're definitely covering the head. And one of them was studying in London, and the other one was working in Norway as an engineer on an oil platform. Right. So, you see these women there wearing the headscarf, wearing a little bit conservative dresses, being there with a small brother. The girls were definitely older. He was younger. So they said like, oh, they took him out to India for a little vacation. So it was them taking the brother out, not the brother them. So but it was so fun. We had so much fun with them, and they were telling me about all the experiences and what they did. They were really very, very well educated. The engineer, I mean, she was working there in the oil business, which is usually an entirely men's domain, and she was just staying there and she kept herself. She was definitely successful in what she was doing, and yeah, it's eye-opening. It's really, we think, oh my God, they have to cover up, they are locked at home and locked away, and they are like, not educated and everything. And it's so not true, it's just an accessoire they're wearing, just like we maybe choose to wear something different in the West, and they choose to do it. Very often they sometimes they have a choice, sometimes they don't, but mostly they do it because it's traditional, right? So but that doesn't mean they are like suppressed or they are like totally uneducated or anything. They really very often highly educated, and they choose to wear this whatever, the headscarf or even the niqab, I guess. And when it's the free choice, it's totally fine. What is not acceptable is, of course, if they are forced to do it. But very often they really choose it, and they are like, I always say, don't judge a book by the cover. You might get really surprised what's actually inside. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a couple of these ladies, and I've been always surprised because it's so contrary to what we sometimes believe in the West. What these women are, it's they can be everything, and it's amazing very often.
Yeah, definitely. And don't be afraid to try new places. One of the friendliest places I've ever been was Iraq, actually. And most people don't have Iraq on their radar, but it's beautiful, beautiful place. So friendly. And it's one of those places. I had this man. He had invited me to his stables, and afterwards he gifted me with this like golden, gorgeous horse statue. And I still have it, but at the airport, they stopped me, and they were like kind of inspecting it. And I was like, please don't take my pretty horse statue. But then I also was thinking of like, there's some kind of TV show like where foreigners go to prison because they smoked drugs. And I think it was a Bridget Jones movie. I don't know. So I'm like, oh my God, did he like pull a fast one on me? But of course, everything was fine. But yeah, I think definitely like just be smart and just go. That's what adventuresses do. We go.
That's right. And if you are interested in more information on Egypt specifically,
and Egypt also
have a. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
it's funny with the lives we tend to can't keep on the same segment line. Just before you go to the Egypt podcast that we did a few months ago, some great information on really cool places to ride,
exactly,
as well as some tips for women traveling there.
Exactly. That was episode 55. Exactly. From November. So that's a really good one. If you love Egypt, I love Egypt. It's one of my definitely favorite destinations. I've been there so many times. So it's definitely worth listening to it. And it's a beautiful country to travel. And I always say, like, don't let people discourage you from traveling to, say, Islamic countries. Don't believe all the stories you hear. Go for yourself and have a look, and just make your own experiences, and then decide for yourself if you like it or not.
Yes, I have put in the comments in the chat for everyone who's watching. If you want to listen to the Egypt, we have some Egypt like articles, but also the podcast episode. So I put the link directly in the comments, and then I also put the link for the women's travel safety course. All of these are on our website, but yeah, definitely go and check out those things. And okay, I guess we're gonna have to sign off. Otherwise, we'll just talk about this forever. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Topic.
Yeah. And
can't wait to hear what we talk about next week.
Yes, definitely. Everyone can comment and let us know what other topics you wanna hear from us. Obviously, there is no boundaries. So yeah, let us have it. Let us hear what you guys wanna listen to. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Exactly. Bye.